Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the BOCC. We have Michael with Calvary Community Church here, going to start us off with an invocation.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we pray in your Son's glorious name. Lord, we lift our eyes up to you. You are our rock and our salvation, our fortress and our refuge. For our hope is in you. And help us to wait for you in the storms and in the light and the darkness. Let our confidence in you not be shaken with what our heart may feel at this moment or the circumstances that surround us or what is on our mind today. But Lord, let our confidence rest on you, the one who is my rock, the one who will never be shaken. Who is like you, O God? Who else has the words of life, the power and authority? You are the eternal God, and it is in your everlasting arms that we rest. We praise you for your steadfast, loyal love and unparalleled power, which has come forth to redeem us, delivering from the kingdom of darkness to your Son's kingdom of light. May truth and justice be established in our cities and our county, and may your spirit and word bring joy to the people. May your wisdom shine forth today in this body in all its glory, and may we hear from you the words, good and faithful servant, and may you come soon, Lord. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Want to join me in a flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last week.
Move to approve minutes of July 21st through the 23rd.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Anybody, any questions or comments on it? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Run through the consent agenda. First items, we have agreements, contracts, bid awards. We have contract execution with Construction Ahead, Inc., DBA Pavement Service Control for the 2025 countywide delineator project. That's the little reflective things you see on the side of the road. Total amount $159,886. This is a federal program, so those funds are coming from the Fed. Solid Waste Management, local waste financial assistance agreement with the Department of Ecology. It's they monitor our plant, our landfill. For the operation and management of hazardous waste and recycling sites, total amount is $482,626. 25% of that is local match, meaning it's 25% of that comes out of our pocket. Interlocal agreement with City of Kalama for public works services and city water main sub-recipient funding and reimbursement associated with South Cloverdale Road and South Cloverdale Road, Confer Road intersection projects. Big project we're working up there. This is a state, there's no additional money to this project. It's just a state driven change. It says where it comes out of. Excuse me. Rescinding resolution number 24-084 and adopting an updated public records policy to reflect changes in county processes. Our public records request is now centralized, or it's been centralized in the commissioner's office, and they continue to work on changing the changes. This one really reflects is retention updates is the big part of that. You have to keep these records for a certain period of time. We tend to never get rid of them, so we're trying to do better about that. Board correspondence, letters, notices. We got a 2026 preliminary budget estimate for Dyking District number 15. Letter dated 7/29/25 to the U.S. Department of Commerce regarding support for the Port of Woodlands Roseway Industrial Project. We sent a letter of support for that. We have two additional letters of support, one to the Honorable Tom Cole, Chairman, Committee of Appropriations, and one to Honorable Rosa DeLauro, Ranking Member, Committee on Appropriations. These were requests from Representative Blusenkamp Perez's office, and I can explain them a little bit. When I was back there, we had a conversation. She wanted to have a conversation on, in 2018, there was a study done. We know we have a sea lion issue that comes up. And so it was to address that. And in that deal, they formed a policy that's called 120F in the act. They've had a growth in sea lions. It's just been pretty much incredible that come up the Columbia River. California sea lions in the Columbia Basin has increased from less than 500 to about 4,000 animals in the last decade. And the Steller sea lion population, which is an eastern stock of Steller sea lions, basically sit at the Bonneville Dam for 11 months out of the year. So 120F set out how you go about euthanizing and trying to keep the populations more in balance so it's not destroying all the salmon. And that's coming up for review. And she wants to have that review primarily because she thinks there's an easier, more humane way of culling the herds. Currently, they trap them, they haul them off to California, and then they euthanize them. And that she just thinks we can do it more efficiently and quicker. Example given, you could sell permits and people go out and harvest and use them for what they want to for a period of time. So that act is coming up for open, and she wants to have that reviewed and try to make that a little more sensible and easier. So that's what those letters were supporting, that idea. Yeah, you sir. Let me get through the last section and then you can ask all the questions you want on it. Okay? Vouchers. Vouchers this last week in the amount of $4,988,425 and 01. And that's consent agenda. Flo, you had a question on it? Come on up.
As you know, I like animals, but this is ridiculous. Why don't they just shoot them? Their meat can go to many of the wild animal refuges that we have. I mean, there's a lot of, that can be, the Indians used to use their meat for different products. They will swim back if you take them to California. And all this other is the small percentage you're gonna get doing that is gonna be very minimal.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't solve a problem. And this way, if we just, I hate to say it, but if you euthanize, it's like a wolf. If you leave a dead wolf there, the other wolves go away. And it would be the same with these,
Yeah.
they won't come up the river. Especially if you do it at the mouth of the river and or try to. I mean, you have to be practical. I mean, I have a bleeding heart too, but it goes just so far. And if they do bypass our river, Columbia River, and go elsewhere, that's just fine. Just got to make sure they don't come here. So
Yeah.
if you review it, does it have to be more lenient or can we be more strict?
Her goal is to make it more lenient.
Can I be on that review?
Huh?
I'd like to join that when they get together to
Well,
discuss this.
the study comes due in August, and the appropriation is for a new study to look at this old way of doing it, see if they can't make it more lenient and easier process, less expensive and easier process. Like I said, maybe sell permits for however many they think they need to do, and let the hunters go out and do their thing instead of trapping and hauling off and.
Instead of
us all
doing the trapping, they're
Yeah.
more, actually, they're for euthanasia instead,
Right.
correct? Is that, oh, okay, then, I'm much,
I think this is to increase the removal, right?
Yeah,
Get more animals.
I think
from
she-
the river.
Right now, you know,
Okay.
just for, now I'm reading off a study they did that the population of California sea lions on the west coast had grown from fewer than 75,000 to an estimated 250,000 over the last 30 years. You know, they used to hire, and I don't know what period of time it was, how far ago it was. There used to be a person that they hired that just went up and down the coast, and that's what he did, was keep the herds,
well, then,
pods, or whatever they call the
Right.
groups of them.
well, see, it would be very much like the management that Weyerhaeuser does, right across from GC's on the west side, on the I-5. We used to go up and ride up in those woods, and of course, it's been a couple, 3 years since I've done that. But when the last time we did, we saw a friend hiking, and they said, do you know that this year that they took 17, and they call them sows, that's female bear. They took 17 sows out of, this is where we ride. And we have seen them up there. And they sent a hunter, Weyerhaeuser does, to go and manage the sows. And so they leave, they have a percentage. They know how many, they have a hunter that goes out and they tell them how many they're estimated to be in that area. So why doesn't the state do that? This is the predator as well as the bear is. It'd be a management, and it sounds cruel, but I think you have to manage it. It's like they took, they quit hunting with dogs, and all of a sudden the bear and the panther, or not panther, cougar population has exploded because they don't have that thing. And so I'm really going for that because I eat salmon.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments on consent? Okay, seeing none, I entertain a motion.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Last chance. Okay, all for a vote, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Upcoming things, we have no meeting, no afternoon meeting tomorrow. Commissioner Rader and myself are gone, so no meeting tomorrow. I'll be gone next, Monday and Tuesday. Spend a little time in Idaho. Upcoming events, Monday, August 18th at 11 a.m. we have Janice House in. Janice House is over by the Corners. It's those couple of houses there. They work with teens to give teens a place to come during the day, and we're gonna learn. It's actually county-owned homes, and we lease that to Janice House for their program with the teens. We have Board of Health today at 10, but also August 28th will be the next Board of Health. And clear in September, we have Southwest Washington Workforce coming in on Tuesday at 10. Anything you gentlemen have before I open this up?
I was just gonna let you guys know, if you remember a while back, we talked about the Washington 250, the birthday of, the 250th birthday of America.
Oh, yeah.
I've been working with Joseph on that, and he's taken that over and he's contacting people throughout the county and the different municipalities to head up different activities and stuff throughout the county for that. So he's our point person for that now.
I think Joseph do a good job with that.
Oh, man.
He's a good one for
He-
that, right?
He's all about that, so that was good. The other thing is, I've been having correspondence with Steve Manlow from the Fish Recovery Board. He watched our, meeting with the Department of Ecology, and he asked if he could come in, and, Kelly's gonna try and get him on to come talk with us either on a Wednesday or on a Monday. So,
He's from where?
the Fish Recovery Board, he's the president.
Oh,
of the Fish
yeah,
Recovery Board.
yeah.
Other than that, I think that's all I got.
What was his name again?
Steve Manlow.
I think people liked that. The last time we had on that, it was kind of eye-opening
Yeah.
for me, how extensive that is. All right. It's, your meeting from here on out, so whatever you have. Just make sure is the green light showing bright? Yeah, it is. Okay, perfect.
Good morning, Commission. I'm Neil Crawford from Kelso. The reason I am here today is to get on record some information that I have just learned about here in the last month about the building and planning and permitting. I'm specifically here for parcel number WJ 02140001, which is off of Spirit Lake Highway, just after you leave Castle Rock and start up the hill. A young lady named Megan Hubbard is an adjoining property owner on this. Work started on that piece of property that I just mentioned in, I believe, May. Megan started to contact the county on 6/10. And since then, I've had multiple conversations on her behalf and for the rest of her family that are affected by this. So I'm gonna pose a question. What's the new permit process for land development? When I talked to Commissioner Dahl a week ago, he stated that all the commissioners felt the same way, that the property owners have a right to use and to develop the property as they see fit, irregardless of permits. Now,
I never
that's a
said
broad.
irregardless of permits,
that-
let's be honest here. I said, if they're in the process of working with building and planning, we're gonna give them some leeway. I'm not gonna get after them.
But those permits are not complete. They're not stamped. They're not issued.
They're in the works. You start coming here and say irregardless, that's not true. Let's stick to the facts. And is this property by you?
May I
Is this
finish,
property
please?
by you?
No, it is not.
It is not. So why are we having a problem with it? What, are they infringing on this lady's property?
Can I finish?
If you stick to I'll let you finish.
So the other two commissioners, do you also feel the same way? Do you feel that if I own property, I can go out without permits, start my work, have the county approach me, follow them down here and fill out my permits and turn around and go right back to work with no stop work order? Because building and planning is saying it comes from above, and that's you. I'll let you think on that.
Right.
I personally, myself, have talked to Trevin Bradley, the nuisance abatement, about the permits and the stop work order. I talked to Adam Trimbley, planning manager, who stated the order to not stop work came from above. I also talked to Tracy Jackson. I believe she's the director. I'm not sure. And she said the same thing. That's when I talked to Mr. Dahl, the conversation we had. The way I see this new process, looking from the outside in on what's going on, if I own the property, and I mentioned this downstairs in building and planning, and they said there is no way that they would allow me to do what is happening on this piece of property. So I own the property. I grade and build a road. I damage multiple other adjoining properties trying to find property stakes because they're not easy to see in a wetland. And then I'm contacted by building and planning about the lack of permits, and I follow them down here to the office and I fill out the permits. Nothing said to stop, I go back to work. So to go with that, again, this is off of the county GIS map, parcel number WJ02140001. At the top of that page, when you pull that up and look at the information, you will find in bright red words, proceed to building and planning for a plan clearance review, all in red, for the epic clearance 4, and these are all in red, critical areas. It is a riparian fish-bearing stream. It's a riparian fish, riparian non-fish, deep-seated landslide, potentially unstable slopes at 30 degrees or more, and a mine hazard. Are these just arbitrary things that are put in a GIS map? Or are they there for a reason? I believe they're there for a reason. It's letting the county know that we've got these things in this space and they need to be looked at. To go with that, there are many missing completed permits, including but not limited to. And I just checked downstairs. They said there are a few of these in process. It's always been my understanding that they have to be complete before the work starts. So not all inclusive, but here are some of them. The State Environmental Policy Act, which is RCW Chapter 43.21C, which also, if they found that there was nothing there, would complete a determination of non-significance on the land. It hasn't been done. A critical area, and this is from the Cowlitz County Codes, Chapter 19.15. That's in your laws. RCW 64.12.030 from Washington State, which talks about injury or removing trees and et cetera, which includes shrubs, brush, doesn't matter what it is. If it's not your property and you damage it, this RCW gives the property owners of those properties the right to take the parties that affected them to court, and the damages, including mental distress, can be valued up to 3 times the settlement amount, and that's timber trespass. Steve and I have talked about timber trespass before. It's not something that building and planning lets people know about. I think you're doing a great injustice because this individual that's doing this work and the landowner and possibly the county are liable for those damages. The damage to the other landowner's property is extensive, including wetlands, trees, vegetation, and the salmon-bearing creek. My question is, how would you feel and how would you handle this situation if this was your property that was trespassed on? Imagine the damage one excavator can do in one day, let alone 40 plus. I yield.
Simple answer, if somebody was damaging my property, bringing their stuff on my property, I'd file suit. It's a civil matter. Wouldn't you?
I'm here to figure out why this contractor has been allowed to set a precedence for the rest of our county in a critical area, a sensitive critical area with with a salmon bearing stream that now has smolt in it. He's driving his excavator here, or he has, can't say that he still is. He has driven his excavator across these areas. He's put ruts in the ground where the wetland's at up to 3 feet deep. Now, after the fact, who's going to repair that damage? Who is going to go and physically, because you're building and planning downstairs, as far as I know, in my conversations, has not physically laid eyes on any of this damage, let alone the creek or the area that he has cleared. I mean, there's a lot of more permits that I found, even with the DNR. Have they reclassified the land from timberland to home? I don't believe they have. That needs to be done through the DNR. There are a lot of different things, and Miss Hubbard is working her butt off because of what they've done down there The guy came in with the excavator and took out all the dead trees. Those trees were standing for a reason. They're home to pileated woodpeckers and other birds that use those trees along with the other wildlife that's in the area. Now, Mr. Dahl must think that this is funny. I don't.
I just think that the way you want to control somebody other people's land is humorous to me. I don't know why you think you have, you don't even live by there. If
I'm a-
he's
I'm a
building
lifetime
over there,
resident
I
of
have
Pallets
full trust
County.
in our building and planning that they're working on this. If he's just building I put pathways through my trees so I can get around my property.
Are these laws not there for a reason? What you're telling me is they're there to be arbitrary. That's exactly what you're telling me.
I'm telling you, I look at laws as guidelines when they turn into abuse. And I'm hearing that we're not really seeing it. Building planning is on top of what he's doing. I don't even know is he building structures? It sounds to me he's just building access to other parts of his property. Now, if he's crossing the fish-bearing stream, I'm assuming Fish and Wildlife has been called. You called us, I'm sure you called Fish and Wildlife.
I didn't have a need to. The
Okay,
permits start here. This is the county. This is you. This is the county I've lived in for 63 years. And you wonder why I'm concerned. I wish the room was full of contractors so that they could hear what I've got to say. Now it's on record. This is on record. Now, the news media can be contacted, and anybody else Ms. Hubbard wants to contact can come in here and get this.
absolutely. It's open public meeting.
So I'm going to ask the other two commissioners, do you also feel the same way?
I don't know that I'm understanding everything here, and I don't know what the process is on the permitting if they're crossing fish-bearing stream. I don't know what the process is to stop that. I'd have to,
I just gave you the code, Steve.
well, you're telling me, I understand what you're saying is not supposed to happen, right? And it should be permitted first. I don't know if a piece of property has wetlands on it and if it's got protected streams and those types of things. I guess I don't know how this proceeded. Most definitely, he doesn't have any right to damage somebody else's property. I mean, if he's damaging my property, I would certainly file suit. But nobody's going to give anybody a permit to damage somebody else's property.
The problem still remains. The permits are not, there's not one permit that has been completed, especially the environmental permits. And he's still working.
Are we responsible for environmental permits?
No, that was my next question. Do we do the environmental permit or evaluation here?
I fall into my chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Director of Building and Planning. Yes, we do the permitting here. Not all the permitting will be done within our office. When Mr. Roseland is done with his permitting process, we were informed by neighbors that there was some work being done. We went out, we physically walked the property. We had several people on site that have done their due diligence out in the field. They have worked with Mr. Roseland, and he is working with our department and obtaining the correct permits he needs to continue his work. We are finding his way, his path forward so he can do things correctly. When he does do his SEPA, the State Environmental Checklist, it will be sent to different agencies, and DNR, Department of Ecology, neighboring jurisdictions will have chances to comment, and then those comments will be turned into a report, and then he will abide by, his permit will be conditioned with what the, their specifications are. He is in the process of everything that he's doing. He did start before he got permits. We don't go around policing other people's properties. We wait until we're notified, or we hope homeowners, like Mr. Crawford has said, come in and do it the correct way. This was done incorrectly, and we're trying to make it right. So we're working with the homeowner and making it right.
So
Or aside from damaging somebody else's property, that to me is a
That's a
separate
civil
issue.
matter. That's a civil matter.
But if a piece of property has protected wetlands or fish-bearing streams,
Mhm.
we've got no way to stop somebody
We
from just
do.
driving through
We
that?
do, and he has stopped working in the creeks. We have stopped him. He is not working in the creeks. He's not doing any of that right now at all. He is finishing his paperwork so we can continue his permitting process
On his own property?
on his own property. And a lot of, just as a general statement, there are a ton of properties in Cowlitz County that have little creeks, streams, some say fish bearing, some say don't. I can't tell you there's salmon in the creek. I don't know. But I can tell you that there's critical areas on the property and we're working to alleviate those critical areas.
Okay,
He did some excavation and grading work. That's how it all started. So we're working to rectify the situation that was started without a permit. We do this with any homeowner that we find out is working without permits. And he obviously needs permits, so we're working with him.
So pardon my ignorance on this whole process, but why is it that you feel that there should be stop orders issued if he's working with the building and planning department to get these things rectified?
Because there's no eyes on what he's doing. After the fact that he came down here and filled out the permits once he was approached, and I would believe it was in the day or in the neighborhood of 30 days after he'd started the project, the county came out. He came down and filled out the permits the way I understand it. He left them here. He turned around and when he went back, he went right back to work. That's not the way the SEPA is supposed to work. That's not the way the reviews are supposed to work. The reviews are supposed to work so that there are measures put in place to make sure that equipment, oil, anything else doesn't get into the stream. The buffers and the setbacks are there. He should have known where the property lines were without searching for them with a brush hog on the back of an excavator, destroying property and things that were there that is in the epic for the county. So it's basically telling me that even if I applied for a permit, there's no reason for me to wait to do my work. I might as well go ahead and do it because it's easier to ask forgiveness under what's happening here than it is to wait for the process. I mean, the process is not fast. That's for certain, because I've seen this in other places. A good example is Westover Creek. I used to live back out that way when Westover Creek, Oxford Road, and the other road were put in. I was in here every meeting. They had to have their SEPA in place before the work continued or started. They didn't even start building the road until the SEPA was completed and that the determinant non-significance had gone through. And that's because the wildlife department had seen steelhead in Westover Creek. So this one has got a lot more red marks on it under the GIS map than a lot of the parcels I've seen. I had no idea that there was an old mine in there. I believe it was a coal mine with the research that I've done somewhere on that property. But the issue remains. Everybody in the county should can put in now, if we follow this as a guideline, put in for their permits and go to work. Doesn't have to be approved because I'm working with the county. That doesn't mean I've got to stop.
Well, I think that, I don't want to speak for you, Tracy, but it's my understanding, based on what you've said, that this gentleman started this work prior to pulling permits. The only reason we knew about it was because somebody called in,
Yeah.
which is understandable because we don't have eyes on all properties across the county and we rely on the citizens to help us with that. But he came in, applied for the permits, and we're working with him to get the permits taken care of.
That's correct.
And you're saying that we don't have eyes on the property.
He went back to work in a critical area and they know it. The building and planning department knows that's a critical area. They didn't issue a stop work order. And when I asked about the stop work order, they
Well-
said everybody downstairs said it came from above. And I'm looking at the above. We
And
don't
I'm-
get any higher in the county.
And I think I'm hearing that after this was all set in motion, building and planning in this permitting process basically is restricted where he's working. So he's not driving across the creek anymore. He's not in the wetlands or the restricted area.
That you know of.
Well, okay, I can't live on somebody else's property watching them every day.
Is it proper to do work before I've got a completed permit? That's an easy one to answer. That's a yes or no.
I guess it depends on what the situation is. I don't know that every situation requires that the permit has to be approved prior to commencing work. And I do agree that we don't want to put rock solid guidelines that says you can't do anything on your property.
I didn't ask about that. I asked about the permitting process.
And I'm talking about the permitting process.
Okay, good enough. I'm on the record. That's why I came.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, this isn't going down good. The reason we have permits is to control bad behavior in land management. Apparently this gentleman, I have just have the knowledge that,
Have you gone up and looked at this flow?
just a moment, this is a general,
I know it, but I want to know how you know it's bad management if you've been up and observed it.
I have
You're
observed bad
taking
management. from-
somebody's word, you could take anybody's word.
Okay, just one moment, Rick, just a second.
Okay,
Okay,
Ju-
let me just finish what I say before you, okay? What I understand about building and planning is that they govern the reasonableness, if that's the word I wanted to use, of doing what's being done to land as you develop it. And if they do not issue a permit, that means that in their knowledge, that land is not suitable for what you're doing. So if you don't have that permit completed and accepted, you should not be doing what you want to do. It might not be a feasible thing. It might be very destructive.
so you believe everything that comes down from the state and stuff is reasonable? You
No.
think spotted owl is reasonable? You
No.
think all this stuff is reasonable?
When I,
Do you think we should have some ability to say, hey, that's nonsense?
I think what you need, I think there's channels to go
I'm
through.
very careful on people's rights to do.
I
stuff to the property.
totally, I know what you're saying. You're limiting, I don't want to limit a person's ability to do what they want to do on their land. And I agree with that. I do. But I also realize that there is a great deal of intelligence in our building and planning to where if that wetland is something that needs to be protected for the reasons that they know, it should be discussed and actually looked at, because I know of quite a few people that have destroyed property and wetlands that really shouldn't have been destroyed. And there has to be a balance. If you go in, I know you're.
You know, if the state wants to take a wetland, you know what they do?
well,
They take
shouldn't
it
do-
and they say, okay, we're going to designate this area over here as a substitute for that, but we'll destroy this. A perfect example is
No.
Hall Road, that
I
10
know.
acres up there that
I,
the Silver Lake backs into. They were willing to destroy that and it set aside a piece someplace else.
I totally understand that, Rick. I really do. I'm just trying to say that there has to be some way of monitoring the destruction that can happen. And I'm totally against somebody going, because this has happened to me, where they align, they are so excited about doing whatever they're doing, that they have crossed into my property and ruined a part of it. And I'll tell you what, you've never seen anybody matter. Because
think-
that's my property.
I think
Apparently
we'd all
this
react-
gentleman,
We would all react that way.
okay,
Yeah.
but again, this gentleman apparently doesn't seem to have any respect for either boundaries, either legal or environmental. And I really think that going ahead before you get your permit told, I mean, we've sold land, we've built houses, we've done things like that. And we've always waited until we've gotten our permit, and okay, then we go with it. Because then you know that everything is kosher, you might say. But this gentleman just is gonna do things, whatever he wants to do. And I think that there needs to be some control, and I'm wondering what control. I mean, like he says, it's easier to be forgiven than actually getting permission. Now, that shouldn't be.
The way the balance works, and to me, I'm hearing it happen. Number one is there's lots of people with property that you and I will never know what they were out doing and crossing boundary lines and maybe even damaging protected lands. And the only way we find out about it is when somebody comes forward and says, hey, there's a problem. If that person's damaging protected lands, then we get involved in the process and get the permitting going.
And that's true.
And restrict him and tell him, hey, don't be doing this until we get through the SEPA process or whatever the process needs to be done at the time. And the other thing is if he's crossing into somebody's personal property, just like what we just talked about, if he was crossing into my personal property, I'd be out there videoing him and I'd be looking for a lawsuit. If he was taking timber off my property,
Oh,
I'd be looking for treble damages. And the courts have protected that and upheld that numerous times.
Well, I totally agree with that. And I totally agree with that. I just, it irritates me no end that somebody would have the audacity just to do what he wants to do to whatever land he thinks that he can go through and whether it be his own or the neighbors and damage things without going through at least some study to find out if his actions are affecting things that shouldn't be affected. And that's why we have our planning department to
Yeah.
guide us. I'm not saying it, but they need to have a little bit more like, a restraining power, like, hey, if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna go across that creek, you need to take and put a culvert through. Protect what you're destroying, at least have those kind of guidelines instead of just going in and doing it and going, oh my gosh, I ruined that little stream that had all these little fish in it. Guidelines so that, when he does do what he's doing, he does it in the right way that nothing doesn't affect anything. And that's what they're there for. And that's why we have them. I mean, they're there to help us, not restrict us as much, but to guide us.
Are they not helping him?
I'm
That's
speaking
what I
about
just heard.
generalities. I'm talking about generalities, but apparently this gentleman that's up there, like I say, I only know what's been said today. And don't laugh, Rick.
I just, I'll stay
Okay.
away from
Maybe-
it. There's always, yeah.
Two sides.
I don't know the
Yeah.
process. Maybe Fish and Wildlife's gonna come back and find the hell out of him and make him
No.
restore the creek. I don't know.
That could happen.
Well,
But-
I just want to go back to something that you said, with regards to the intelligence in our, building and planning department. And I don't know, this is the first time I'm hearing of this, and I am not, I'm still learning about the process, that's involved with land development. But I really find it hard to believe, knowing what I know about Tracy and the people in that department, that they're just letting things go.
Okay, well, thank you.
I really find that hard to believe. I also know that they are also advocates for property owners, for private owners, and what they can and cannot do on their land. And
Okay,
they do have guidelines, but they can't be everywhere all the time. So if they're, I personally, as a commissioner and as a citizen, would want somebody in the building and planning department to help me and work me through the process. Now, I'm not gonna go do something illegal. I know that I'm not gonna do that, but people are gonna do what they're going to do. We do have guidelines in place, and I wholeheartedly believe that our building and planning department is doing what they can to help all the citizens
Okay.
of Cowlitz County develop their property. They're not going to do something that is going to be, yeah, it's illegal, we're not gonna do anything about it. If they're made aware of something, they're gonna take action. And that's just been my experience on other issues with them up to this point. I
So,
don't know the full story behind what's going on with this situation, but if they're helping him get through the process and he is going and doing something behind their backs, that's a different situation. That isn't on them. That's on him. He's the one that's being irresponsible with what he's doing. Now, I understand that this gentleman is making us aware of what's going on. And if that's what's going on, I'm sure that our due diligence is going to be leveled up so that we can make sure that the implementation of what needs to be done is being done. But to blanketly say that our building and planning department is just turning a blind eye to things, I have a really hard time believing that,
Okay.
given
Well,
what I
that-
know about them.
that makes me feel a lot more confident in what's happening. I guess I'm a very protective type person. If somebody is taking advantage of another person, I'm there to champion the person that's been wrongly done, and I can see this lady, she's all by herself, looking at this gentleman that has all this huge equipment coming in and going through her property lines and just, taking advantage of her. And of course, I'm protective of
Rightfully
her
so.
because that should not be allowed. So thank you for that perspective. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. On a lighter note, last meeting, we had the College County Mental Health Facility presentation. I want to first of all commend all of us. We seem to be ahead of the wave on a whole lot of discussions, not only locally but nationally, on mental health and its implications. Example, yesterday's activities across the nation. So we are at the forefront of a great opportunity. I'd like you to go ahead and kind of keep us briefed on a weekly basis of highlights of what's happening. And certainly let us know how we can help you and our county take advantage of the opportunity of moving ahead. It sounds like there's been some new national regulations or presidential edict put in place that are creating some key opportunities. We should be at the forefront of that with the presentation and the planning we've seen over the last months, and particularly a blessing from last week's meeting.
Yeah, that was an interesting meeting last week, I purposely went into that one cold without talking to them just to hear what it was. And I know they bought the property over at Charlie's, and I know they're planning that 16 bed unit. The other part of the discussion was more of a wish list of what they'd like to see. When I think about that Ron, I just bring up questions, and I'm not saying there's not a need, but their program is being developed because Washington State is supposed to close Western State and Eastern. In fact, they're being fined, and the taxpayers actually are being fined an ungodly amount of money on, I think, a monthly basis because they're still open. So this initial push is to find avenues to get those people out of there into somewhere else. And so I do question, I think in my mind, how's that? Not that it shouldn't happen, or I'm not going to stand in the way of people trying to fulfill their business model, but I'm curious how it actually helps the county. Do you know kind of where I'm seeing? Okay, we got to get them out of Western State, we got to get them out of Eastern, we're going to spread them out across the state in these facilities. How does that, I struggle a little bit with how that benefits Cowlitz. I'm not saying it won't, but it seems this initial phase is really to close Western and Eastern. That's the initial goal. And I would hope it grows beyond that and you start helping some of the locals. That's my only questions that pop in my mind when I hear it.
Sure. And
Yeah.
and right off the top, a key opportunity, how it helps Cowlitz County is if private enterprise can move ahead and help us solve a problem without government having
Yeah.
having to be involved, or maybe just put some guidelines together
Yeah.
or seek some of these funds, like you're supporting Perez and others
Yeah.
with letters, et cetera.
Yeah, and I'm totally on board with private enterprise. This initial blush, when I listened to them talk, they had to follow everything DHHS is telling them to do. It's like everything they're doing at Western, everything they're doing at Eastern, you got to follow these rules. If you follow these rules, we'll try and get you some money to help with that. I think me and you are on the same page. You'd like to have it more pure, that it's just private enterprise making those decisions on how to treat instead of the state telling you how to treat.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the other concern I have, is how much leeway do they have to make the program as effective as possible? Because the goal obviously is to get them functional and back into society.
I guess,
By
was
the
like-
report we had, Steve has also awareness and working on some connections. And so that's what we continually expect to do, is called
Yeah.
connections and opportunities. I've personally led my life of development and saying, I'd never have a crystal ball of where I'm going, but I have a view of 5 or 6 opportunities out there. And lo and behold, a blessing comes through that gives an indication of which direction to go in. And so
Yeah.
this certainly has some great possibilities, is what I'll say.
Right.
And possibilities need nurturing.
Right.
I was left with two serious concerns in my head about that whole situation. The first one is what is the state's plan? Do they have something written down on what their plan is to go step by step and close Eastern and Western? And hospitals, if they do, what is that plan? Are they just gonna take the people out of there and send them back to the counties they came from, or dispose of them how? Number two is, what is it gonna take to get the state to turn loose of that money that they've been fined and are being fined out of our pockets on a regular basis? What's it gonna take to get that money away from them and be proactive to help private enterprise do something with it?
Right, and a personal perspective is that if we wait on the state to tell us anything, we're already 10 years too late. Is that we need to push it a little bit and expect expectations out of the state and actually present them with, I mean, even in suits in certain cases, to release and go in a positive direction, et cetera.
Yeah.
Because we know we're not making any progress through where we are.
Right, if they don't have a plan in place, we need to write one for them.
Right, right.
So-
And we have a running start at that.
A couple of things, Ron. There were some questions that I had after that meeting also. And I have talked with Gina, and I even emailed her what their proposal is, to see where we have duplications with services already offered within our county that they're proposing. The other thing that you mentioned that is exciting is in the big beautiful bill, the president has talked about allocating money for counties and states to open mental health and rehab facilities. There's money that has been set aside for that in an article that I was reading. And so I'm not sure to what extent they're looking at receiving money from the federal government to do that kind of thing. But either way, if that is a possibility for us to look into, that's just another avenue that opens up for us to be able to have possible funding for those types of institutions, if we want to have one of those in our county. And so I was excited, but there are still questions. And I think just due to the fact that the state doesn't know what they're doing, I agree with you. We might need to spearhead and just go in a direction and blaze a trail as to how this is done and what needs to take place. But the funding options that would be available through the federal government for those types of institutions, in the article that I was reading, there could be some money for people like them also to help get those things started.
And I think we're all in support of knowing that we need to blaze trails and see what the hurdles are but at least leading a direction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? We got Board of Health in a couple minutes at 10. Let me just check and see. I don't see any hands. I don't see any questions. Okay. We will adjourn this meeting. Board of Health will fire up here in just a couple minutes.